Hey guys, Lewis from Recycle Bicycle Sales here. In today's video, we want to talk about moving from casual riding across to racing. So maybe you've been riding your bike for quite a while, but you've just been going out on your nice sort of Sunday afternoons when the weather's perfect. And now you're thinking, I really want to start getting into racing and testing myself and seeing how good my skills are. That's exactly what this video is going to be about. Talking about how to move from just casual riding into a more structured sort of racing routine. So given that, I think the first thing we want to talk about is what your goal is here. For me, a particular goal that I had recently when moving across into racing is I wanted to get into triathlon. So I set a goal of doing an Ironman 70.3. Here's a photo of me actually doing it. I just wanted to show off a little bit. But point here being, I think it's really important to have a goal. Whether your goal is to finish your first bike race you've ever done, or whether your goal is to be the first over the finish line, whatever your goal is, it's important to have that set out so that we know what we're working towards. When we're setting goals, a really helpful thing to make sure that they're great goals are following the SMART system, S-M-A-R-T. So I suppose the main takeaway there is make sure that your goal is something that can be achievable. I don't know if this is going to sound like a negative thing, but maybe you're 70 years old and you're thinking of getting into the Tour de France. I would politely try and sort of maybe bring that goal back to something that's a little bit more attainable for, I suppose, what you're looking to do. Nonetheless, this video is talking about how to transition from casual riding across to racing. So maybe you're looking to get into your first bike race at 70 years old. Go you. Another great thing to do is to critically assess your strengths and your weaknesses. I find if you get a piece of paper like this, you're able to write down some different things on each side. Some things that you might put in here could be, you might already find that you're quite fit, and that could be a strength. Another one that I think is really important to put down there could be your bike handling skills. Maybe you've never ridden in a bunch before, because it can sometimes feel a little bit different than just riding by yourself. I'm sure that you can fill up both of these sides with lots of different things. You might be able to find something that's a weakness and sort of work on that to turn it into a skill. The next thing to think about is structured training. Now this is going to be different for different people because we all have different time commitments. Maybe you've got a family, or perhaps you've got a full-time job and you just need to work around that. What we want to find out here is what time slots you're able to go for a bike ride. For example, you might be able to ride on maybe like a Sunday morning for 2 hours before you go out for lunch with the family later, or it might be an hour on the bike before you go to work, whatever it is. Work out what time you've got that you can dedicate towards this, and then you can work out your structured training plans within those different sessions. So once you've worked out how many time slots you've got throughout a week, you can sort of structure your training around these different blocks that you've got. I think there's 4 main types of training ride that you can do. The first one, which I think is really important for beginners, is learning some bike handling skills. We did a video a little while ago called Top Tips to Improve Your Cycling, and you'll see in that video that the main ones that we spoke about were doing figure eights, that will really help, and doing some slow cornering as well. And that way you can learn how to control the bike a little bit better. Again, if you want to know a little bit more about it, we've got that further back on our YouTube channel. The second one that I think is really good would be perhaps even just to go and do a hills ride. When you go up in the hills, you'll find that, first of all, riding up the hill is difficult, is probably the first part. But the second part is when you come back down the other side, you're going to learn some handling as well at some speed rather than slow in the car park. So going up in the hills, I think, is really important. The third type that we can talk about is interval training. Interval training is a really good way to build up strength on the bike. Interval training could be doing some hard sprints and then catching your breath, and then some hard sprints again and catching your breath. It's probably one of the best forms of training that you can do. And I think the fourth one that's really important, and there's so much science behind why it's really important, is zone 2. What zone 2 means in the fancy science words that they use is pretty much just saying take it easy. You should be able to hold a conversation with your friend, and it is usually a really, really long bike ride. That's a great one if you're riding along with a buddy to a coffee shop, but the coffee shop happens to be an hour that way. So hopefully, as you've been doing your training, you're noticing yourself getting a bit stronger and even just more comfortable on the bike. This is great. This is exactly what training is for. If you look at most different training plans that people will talk about, they often say that you don't want to increase by much more than about 10% per week. That's kind of like saying, don't go too hard too soon. And the final thing that I want to say about training is, don't be too hard on yourself. Training takes time. If you're feeling a little bit under the weather one day, don't sweat it. It's okay. You're not being paid to race your bike. So at the end of the day, it's also got to be enjoyable. Yes, I know that we want to get through the race, but it's also important to take care of your health on the long run as well. This is why it's super important to take rest days as well. Rest is when your body has a chance to recover. It's absolutely not worth skipping over rest days. If you think you're gonna get one extra day of training, it might be the wrong thing to do. The next step is to make sure that you optimize your gear for racing. Now this could mean something like making sure that your clothes are sort of ready for racing. I know that Lycra is Lycra, but often we'll find that casual clothing is sometimes a little bit different to this racing clothing. For example, we've got like the pockets on the back here so that you can have your food and your energy gels in the back here, making sure that you've got nice, comfortable padded shorts that fit you properly. So making sure that you've got gear that fits you and having a nice safe helmet as well. While we're on the topic of gear, we can talk about making sure that your bike is ready. Now this could mean simply taking it into the local bike shop for a service. It could mean setting it up so that it's nice and sort of fast and aero. But I think the most important thing is making sure that it fits you correctly. We've done a few videos on our YouTube channel talking about how to make the different parts of the bike fit you properly. But to give you a very quick sort of summary of those, I suppose, is making sure that the seat height that we have is perfect for your length of leg, and making sure that the handlebars are nice and safe and easy to reach so that you can control the bike all throughout the race. If you have money burning a hole in your pocket and you really want to upgrade something on your bike, there's lots of things that you can upgrade. The two most common things that I see people upgrade when they're talking about getting into racing are either putting a power meter on their bike, makes training a little bit more specific for you, or upgrading to fancy deep dish carbon wheels so you get a bit more of that aerodynamic and it looks cool. And now we're at the fun part. Join up with your local club to join into some races. What you'll find is that most local clubs, if there's enough people, tend to have some different categories. There might be like the elite racing category, the borderline Tour de France riders, and then we can come down to the different levels of racing, I suppose. I recommend starting in a more sort of entry-level category because that'll teach you what it's like doing a bike race. You'll find that, well, at least I found that I had quite a steep learning curve when I got into racing. Just being the fittest person there doesn't guarantee you the win. There's so much more to racing. There's strategy, there's following people's wheels, there's all these different things, avoiding a crash, all this sort of stuff. There's so much stuff to learn. So I strongly recommend starting in the more sort of entry-level categories and then slowly working your way up. Just riding next to someone in a straight line feels different than riding next to someone going around a corner. And it feels very, very different to having someone outside and inside as you're going around the corner. It can be a little bit daunting. So I suppose I'm kind of saying like, be ready for that because that's what racing is like. Another great thing about grassroots level racing is that you get to learn so much. You don't really have the added pressure that comes from this, elite level racing and that kind of thing. This allows you to learn from each race and progress your way up the different categories, all the way up until you hit that goal that you set for yourself. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope this has taught you a couple of good little tips about how to transition from casual riding across to racing. If you reckon that there's anything that we've missed, let us know in the comments below. Or even tell us below something that you learned in your first race. I'm sure there's someone else that's watching at home that would love to learn from a comment rather than a mistake in their own race. Otherwise, I'm going to say good luck at your first race and we'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.